Hello and welcome to Joshua Hill's PBL. My PBL is about drugs and the effects of those said drugs on a person's mind, life, and family. I have 5 drugs that I researched and evaluated upon, and I will be discussing these with you right now. The first drug I researched upon was marijuana, or cannabis. Uh, Research shows that short-term effects of marijuana is altered senses, altered sense of time, changes in mood, impaired body movement, and difficulty with thinking and problem solving, as well as impaired memory. On the other hand, long-term effects of marijuana is a reduced total thinking or memory or learning functions, how the brain builds connections between these areas, and a lot of other things actually, like breathing problems, increased heart rate, problems with child development during pregnancy, uh, temporary hallucinations, paranoia, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, lots of things. And that's just the effect on the self. Effect on life is you generally have a lower life satisfaction, you have poor mental health, poor physical health, more relationship problems, and less academic and or career success. Now the effects of family are fairly simple. A loss of attachment and safety issues and such. Marijuana is generally the best one out of the bunch. It's kind of hard to say. It's definitely not the worst. People can recover from marijuana very easily, and it is not a very destructive drug over short term use. However, over long term use, your mind gets addicted to it. So you're going to get into a habitual sense of, I'm going to take this, and then it screws you up. Our next one is cocaine. The cocaine's effect on itself, short term, is makes the user feel euphoric, energetic, talkative, and mentally alert. Decreases the need for food and sleep. It helps them perform simple physical and intellectual tasks more quickly. It really depends on the user. Some users experience the opposite effect. Some more things are constricted blood vessels, dilated pupils, increased body temperature, heart rate, blood pressure. Uh, let's see here. uh, Violent behavior, feelings of restlessness, irritability, anxiety, panic, paranoia. They may experience tremors, muscle twitches. Uh, there could be some cardiovascular effects, neurological effects. Sudden death can occur, which should be enough to say that this is not a good drug to take, and this is just short term. Long term has sleep deprivation, loss of appetite, very severe depression, increased irritability, restlessness, panic attacks, paranoia, full blown psychosis. But the worst part is that the user gets used to cocaine and starts to develop a tolerance for it. So to get the same high, the person has to take more of it, which is much more harmful. The effect on life is obviously depression, slowed ability to think, loss of motivation, no satisfaction from life's events aside from the cocaine. Usually, cocaine users become hostile and paranoid. The effect of cocaine on family is that it makes the cocaine users behave in ways that hurt their family, and it affects their thoughts and priorities, usually occupies their time, threatens their values, demands their attention, and eventually the family members will develop their own physical, psychological, and emotional problems. So overall, cocaine is absolutely horrible. I mean, all of these illegal drugs are horrible, or legal drugs if you actually want to get into those terms. What cocaine does generally is it makes them feel energetic and hyperactive. However, it kind of does quite the opposite in terms of health. So the fact that it takes more to get the same high after you've taken it is absolutely devastating if you are addicted to it. Now let's talk about hallucinogens. The short-term effects are they see images, they hear sounds, they feel sensations that seem real but don't actually exist. They get mental stimulation and heightened understanding. But that's only on what they call a good trip. A bad trip does the opposite. It's anxiety, despair, depression, insanity, death, all of these mental feelings. So essentially it's like a crazy dream, if you want to put it into those terms. Um, Effects of hallucinogens on life are an unpredictable mood. Just generally, you can never predict their mood. Uh, but there are no real long-term health effects that I could find. However, the effects of family are the family often try to adapt to the user to make them feel, loved, and they worry about them, obviously. However, the family eventually becomes ruled by fear, which is terrifying. So overall, hallucinogens generally give off a very short term, crazy dream. Usually ends up with you feeling kind of sad, but there are no long-term effects that I could find. Now let's talk about heroin, one of the worst ones regarding addiction. Short-term effects are a surge of pleasurable sensation. So you get stuff like warm flushing of the skin, dry mouth, you get nausea, vomiting, severe itching, drowsiness, slowed heart function, slowed breathing. Sometimes it can cause death. I mean, most of these can. Long-term effects on yourself is changes the physical structure of the brain. It creates long-term imbalances and it may affect decision-making abilities, the ability to regulate behavior, and responses to stressful situations. Effect of life on heroin is generally, since heroin's so addictive, chemically addictive, you usually run out of money very fast because you rely on it. It usually changes the way they feel regarding mood. The effect on family for heroin is that usually the families lose their family members, and sometimes the family members get caught up and start taking the drug as well. So overall, heroin seems to be some sort of adrenaline for drugs. It seems to be very addictive. Finally, let's talk about my fifth choice, meth. The effect on self for meth is short term. It increases the amount of dopamine in your brain. It'll help you with reward feelings, motivation, pleasure, motor function, supposedly. However, long-term effects are increased wakefulness, increased physical activity, decreased appetite, increased respiration, rapid heart rate, irregular heartbeat, increased blood pressure, increased body temperature, skin sores, generally lots of negative effects. The effect of a life, generally it makes you habitually take meth, and I already mentioned some in the effect of life, so let's just continue to effect on family. Generally, the family members obviously care for their victim of the meth drug and they act upon it. They try to help them out. They try to buy some for, their family member, which usually gets them in trouble, obviously. You can never count on the family members who are taking them. They'll never do what they say. You generally are going to want to try to get them off it. However, it's going to be very hard. So overall, all of these drugs spark a either a chemical or a mental appeal to the brain because of the sensations that they cause and make you become addicted to them, which will not only increase the effects but also increase the defects. In the end, most drug users do not end up well. So, the only real thing I can leave you off with this video is don't don't take drugs. It's really not worth it. People who take drugs end up in a much worse scenario than they are before they took drugs. So, just in general, don't.